Christopher Julius Rock. If you haven't seen it yet, our first foray into the 8 types of people was the 8 types of white people. And now we're going to go somewhere a little bit deeper. But remember, check out the 8 types of people origins for a full breakdown of the 8 types of people in a vacuum, because that will help everything make a lot more sense. This video is actually the real inspiration behind the 8 types of people series that we will explore on this channel. And it's going to be the only one where we really talk about race. Beyond this, it won't always go this deep, okay? But one day I was reflecting on Chris Rock's commentary on the different types of black people, and I came to the conclusion that every race has their embarrassments as well as those that they revere. I mean, really every group does. And my initial thought was to try to identify the embarrassing group for every race, but after a decade of this kind of popping in and out of my mind, I wanted to explore it further and be a little bit more productive. Now, just to give you an idea of what Chris Rock said, the year was 1996, the comedy special, Bring the Pain, where Rock delivered a memorable and incisive bit where he humorously explored the different types of black people in America. All right, I'm not going to do that voice the whole time because I don't think I could keep it up. But basically, he's talking about different types of black people, and it's something that a lot of people, because it's not only black people that like Chris Rock, a lot of people remember. But I think that black people might look at it and say, is this a good conversation? Some black people are like, yeah, I think it's good. I think it can help create a little bit of a distinction. Other black people are saying, well, are there really only these 2 types of black people? And should we even have made that a public thing that other people could talk about it, right? So there's all kinds of, after many, many years, going on 20 years, or is it 30 years? Oh my gosh, it's still 2005 to me. This is a lot. After all this time, it's something that people still talk about to this day. And I think that doing a video called The 8 Types of Black People, after he said there's 2 types of black people, and then being like, is that really... I'm not trying to tell you that there's actually only 8 types of black people. It is a way to help us look at the different types of people out there. Now, before we do that, you'll see where in Bring the Pain, Chris Rock talks about the difference between these people. He points out class differences. And this is something where this has been a conversation. Is Black America divided? There's actually quite a bit of research on this. He talked about geographic differences. Some people will say that depending on where someone lives, that can change their experience. And I don't think it's just saying like, oh, do you live in a city or do you live in the suburbs? I think it also says what goes along with living in those 2 areas for someone who is black versus someone who is white. Any of us who know black people who grew up in the suburbs, if they were, quote, well-spoken, which that's a whole nother topic, let's not go there right now. But if they were deemed as well-spoken, then oftentimes even their own peers would say, you talk white. Which, again, well, I'm not getting into all this right now because y'all ain't finna try. Y'all are not gonna get me started. They also talked about generational differences. And the easiest way to explain this is that there are people that were children during the civil rights movement that are still alive right now, like not even that old alive, okay? And then there are children who may never really understand who Martin Luther King was. Like, kind of just like some guy in a book, which is strange because even maybe 30, 40, 50 years later, you would think, but meh. And then there's just stereotypes in general and those very pervasive stereotypes. And so as Chris Rock goes through these different types of people, these different types of black people from his perspective, you basically just see that there are those that are dope and then there are those that are bad. But again, if you ask who's who, I think that's going to depend. I think that there are black people who really love the type of black people that we might think of as not great and not see anything wrong. And then there are people who really love the type of black people that some black people might have questioned and said, well, where's their blackness? Now, this is a really interesting conversation because nowadays we're definitely a little bit more open in the black community to like, what is blackness? But then there are also some that because this is opening up more, who are really doubling down on what the black identity is. So again, that's another topic. I'm not really trying to go that deep. What I want to do is simply explore for really non-black people to help remind you that there's more than one type of black person and not just say it like you know that, right? But to remind you of some that you've already met. I think that the most important thing that I have to ask of everybody who watches any of my 8 Types of People series that go a little bit deep go a little bit into an area that's uncomfortable, that before you form a judgment, I just really encourage you to approach this discussion with an open mind, open heart. Listen to the video first, listen to what we're talking about, and then share. And if you've already taken the time to write a comment out about how trash this video is, but you're still listening, leave that comment up and simply reply to it afterwards. Do you think that you were right about what you said? Do you think that maybe I made a point you weren't expecting? Remember, in each of our 8 types of people videos, we try to identify like a well-known individual and someone that you might have met in real life, like a real life example that's going to help jog your memory. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the angel or the model for what we would consider Black America is probably Michelle Obama. And you might be thinking maybe both of the Obamas, sure, whatever. But Barack was the president. Michelle being the first lady, the impact that she chose to make, really by just being herself, it's huge. And as the former first lady, this advocate for education and health and wellness, she really embodied grace and integrity in a way that so many Black people resonated with. She stood by her man, but she also stood on her principles. There was just something about her that felt like one of us. Okay, and that's really important when you consider the type of Black people that we might expect to be in the political sphere. To know that Black people that might say, in our culture, we say regular Black about things. To be able to say like a regular Black person was in the White House was like, yeah, you know, and there's so many jokes that get made about, again, in our culture, not everybody should be making them jokes. But there's a lot of jokes that get made about how the White House was different for that 8 years. Anyways, and so when you think about this person's commitment to empowering young people and promoting healthy lifestyles, which is huge, it's so important in America, you know, and how much she inspired so many different types of people, she just served as a model of positivity. And unfortunately, it seems like there is a lack of respect. We're starting to give people their flowers in this day and age, but there is a lack of respect for those angels out there in the Black community sometimes. And so let's look at Tina and Nina. Tina and Nina are a pair of doctor, nurse, sisters, okay? Tina is a dedicated nurse and Nina is a compassionate doctor. Both of them are known for their gentle care, their unwavering support for their patients. They volunteer at health clinics. They're always ready to lend a helping hand. They embody kindness and moral integrity in their community. These are people who have worked really, really hard to get to where they are. If you think about the amount of investment a person has to make to become a doctor or an LPN, that dedication that some of the people that you work with, some of the people that have been there for you are amazing Black people. Now let's look at a very well-known philanthropist in Miss Oprah Winfrey. And I'll be real with you guys. It's very, very challenging doing these 8 types of people lists if I'm talking about celebrities or using a celebrity example, because for years, Oprah has been known as all these good things, but lately, whether it's because of Ozempic conversations or whether it's because of like conspiracy stuff, now Oprah is being lumped in other areas. So forgive me if you're not an Oprah fan, but consider the legacy that Oprah has left up until this point. The legacy that makes Oprah who she is, according to most people, even to the uninformed, okay? You know, she is a renowned media mogul. She's become a really powerful billionaire philanthropist. She was the first Black woman billionaire. She's dedicated much of her life to charitable causes, focusing on education and empowerment for underserved communities. Her hands-on approach to philanthropy exemplifies a commitment to making a difference. She's always been about that life. There are, of course, things people bring up about what has gone wrong in her efforts, I think, with the car situation, and I think maybe there's even a school situation, and I'm sure there's more stuff I don't know about, and maybe I have to say allegedly. My thing is, when we look at someone like Oprah, we can think that even if nowadays she's not inspiring people to be philanthropists, that doesn't matter, because 20, 30 years ago, there were people all over the world who said, I want to be the next Oprah Winfrey. And very few of them were talking about becoming a Black billionaire. They wanted to be givers because of it. And think about it, in the Black community, this is something I will admit I feel like is actually a very common stereotype or trope. Is it great that it's one? I don't know, but I do think it's one that we see all the time, which is the young Black, happy, willing to help anybody mentor. We see that a lot in like TV and stuff like that. This is David. He's a youth mentor. He spends his weekends coaching a local youth basketball team and organizing community events to provide scholarships for underprivileged kids. His hands-on approach to mentoring shows his commitment to making a positive impact in the lives of young people. This is somebody that I feel like a lot more young Black men are than we give credit for, even in our community. And this is also something that I think is such an important part of Blackness. It just makes me think about like the oral traditions and connecting and moving our bodies. And there's something about when we choose to go out and volunteer with our youth and get active with them and all that. I feel like there's so many of us who identify with having, whether it was like the Big Brothers Big Sister program, or even just somebody in our neighborhood or a cousin or something like that, who just kept us focused, who kept us feeling like we could get out of whatever situation we were in. Not every Black person grew up in the hood and was trying to leave the hood, but some people grew up in situations where maybe, like in my situation, my parents knew how to get it for themselves, but not really how to show me how. They didn't really communicate a lot. And so I didn't know a way out, but there were people outside of that showed me, that talked to me, that explained it, that broke it down. And I feel like we have so much of that in our community that because we're insulated from the outside, a lot of people don't get to see how beautiful Black connection can be and how there's this unspoken language between us and there's an understanding. And when I used to be a teacher, I remember being able to connect with my Black students in a way that I can't explain it. It was like they were all my little cousins. It doesn't make sense, but it just was how I felt. And I think that there is something that gets overlooked in us. And because a lot of the stuff that we see on TV is the same old tropes, the same one Black character or whatever, or if we're trying to be successful nowadays, it has to be drama, drama, drama. There's not a lot of great sitcoms out there anymore. There's not a way for us to be able to show the world who we are. And frankly, I feel like ever since Black Panther, a lot of us don't want to. A lot of us is like, yeah, Wakanda forever, get away from me. And so this is tough because it's like I want to shout from the rooftops like you have no idea what we do, especially for each other. But then again, maybe every group feels that way. I don't know. All right, let's talk about the hopeful, the upper. And I think LeBron James is somebody who, if you know anything about me, you know I'll have my opinions about people and not like people. And I'm not really a LeBron fan, right? However, I always hear that LeBron is just not only a celebrated athlete, but an activist, that he maintains a really hopeful vision for social change and is always talking about it. He uses his platform to advocate for education, equality, justice, and inspires others to believe in the potential for positive transformation. I think that is extremely powerful for somebody who's in the position he's in to be out there doing that. I think the issue is so many of our youth, especially nowadays, and this isn't just talking about Black people, but just youth in general, really respect money, power, fame. And so while we might want to look at our athletes and say, hey, like you need to step up and be a good role model, it's like, there are so many other good role models. There's so many other people that aren't millionaires and billionaires that are doing great things, but we don't notice them. I mean, one of my favorite things to see is people who set up community gardens or little free libraries or community fridges. Shout out to Indie Community Pantry, which is one that I love to see the expansion and the growth that they've been having. This is Tasha. Tasha is an inspiring community leader. She believes in the power of collective action. She organizes community cleanup events and encourages residents to work together for a brighter future. She's got her garden going as a way to bring people together, and her job is to instill hope and motivation in those around her. And she has devoted her life. She has created a lifestyle that allows her to spend all of her free time, all of her resources giving back to her community. This is something that has been a prominent part of Blackness for as long as we've been free, and probably before that, but just in different, more private ways. We take care of each other. We take care of our own. And there are always these really beautiful, just community-led people that do things and no one's going to know about it. Whenever I used to work with nonprofits and I was going into the hood doing different things like where I grew up, people didn't know nobody was doing any of this stuff. Because a lot of times it's one person, it's a few different people. It's not, big organizations. And then if it is big organizations, half of the funding is going to go to paying the people who run in the whole thing. And so you just don't really get to know what's going on in those places. You don't know what people are doing. And frankly, people like this, Tasha's not going to go out and brag about it. Unless she's trying to get more funding or something like that, and she's doing some fundraising, she's not going to go out and be like, oh yeah, hey, I'm going to tell every single person I meet about my community garden. Maybe she's shy. Maybe she's nervous. Maybe she doesn't want people interfering with it. Isn't that sad though? This is what frustrates me when I was doing this list. What frustrates me the most about doing this list is that as I'm going through this, there's so many people that are going to know all the famous people and have this very specific image of what Black people are in their head, but not going to imagine the Tashas and the Davids and the Ninas and the Tinas. All right, let's keep going. Let's talk about the ally, the unifier. All right. Now, interestingly enough, when I was trying to figure out who this would be, what kept coming up when I was doing the research was Kamala Harris. Kamala was Kamala Harris. Now, not only was she the first Black woman vice president of the United States, but she was also the first woman, the first African American, the first Asian American to hold the office of Attorney General in California. And some people would argue that what she did as Attorney General was problematic, just like a lot of people say that about what Biden did as a younger politician. Some of the things that he stood for that was going to impact a lot of Black people indirectly. Even though when I tried to look up like what she's done that would be positive, that would be compared to like LeBron or Oprah or Michelle Obama, it wasn't necessarily, because it's all politics stuff. So there's not really a lot of stuff that you'd be like, oh yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that. And yet ever since she started running, we've seen people really rally behind her. And so I think it could be argued that she is an ally, that because she is an advocate for a lot of things that people really care about now, because she does seem to have a commitment to social justice. And so no matter what, I think that it can be said that this person has offered an opportunity for a lot of us to come together that were recently separate, that were recently not necessarily messing with each other, which I guess is pretty cool. I want to kind of think about somebody outside of the political space, all right? And what we can think about is, this is Marcus. He's an inclusive educator. He's a high school teacher. He actively promotes inclusivity and understanding among his students. He works outside as a volunteer. He is the coach, and he just facilitates discussions on social issues and works to create a safe space for all voices. And he wants to make sure that starts in the classroom. And that's where you know that if your kid goes and is a part of his class, that they're going to be well-rounded and well-mannered and respected. I think that this is so important too. Black men in the academic space and in community spaces, just like the mentor that we talked about, those who choose to go into those places are often revered by administrators because of the work that they can do with, quote, problem students. Let's look at the lone wolf or the maverick. And I thought it was very interesting when I was doing my research that Janelle Monáe would come up because, you know, she's known as an innovative artist and activist, and she embraces her individuality, her self-expression. She challenges societal norms through her music, through her fashion, and she represents the power of standing out and being true to oneself. And the more I read, the more I realized that it wasn't just that she's this really innovative person. What's interesting is I think maybe 10-20 years ago, the lone wolves were usually going to be the ones that most Black people looked at and said, you're white or you're not acting Black. In all reality, our activists, our community leaders, our pastors, they're all kinds of Black people. You might have a specific expectation of what you're going to experience if you go to a Black church with a Black pastor, but that's more the style of preaching. That's not who that individual is. What you think you know and what you've reduced to one thing is still so much bigger, but that's another story. This is Zara, okay? Zara is an independent filmmaker. She's innovative. She's known for her unique storytelling style. She tackles unconventional topics. She challenges norms, and she uses her art to express her individuality. She wants to spark conversations about important issues. She's not afraid to be a little bit confrontational, even a little combative. It's very interesting because in the past, I do think that these were the types that would have been more accepted amongst white circles, the artsy fartsy types. Okay, the independent. Whereas I wonder now, it could be argued that many of us are experiencing almost like a lone wolf transformative era. Now let's talk a little bit about the cynic or the downer amongst Black people. And somebody that came up in my research was Cornel West. This is a prominent philosopher, social critic. He often expresses skepticism about the state of racial and social justice in America. And his critiques can be thought-provoking to some, but also can lead to feelings of disillusionment amongst those seeking change. And so he's looked at kind of like in that downer way. I think it's very interesting to consider that this person might have been able to be looked at as like a lone wolf or a maverick. And yet, because he doesn't necessarily go with the primary thought that most people would agree with, there's a little bit of an issue. But then on the other side, one could say, well, if he's on the wrong side, he's on the wrong side. And yet there are people who obviously follow him enough for him to think he could be running for the United States president right now. The cynic or the downer, we might look at somebody like Cornel West, even amongst the Black community, and be like, oh my gosh, bro, shut up. A lot of people are upset saying, hey, stop running for president. Stop splitting the vote. Get your people to vote for whichever party, blah, blah. Now let's talk about Greg. This is Greg. He's the jaded journalist. He's a seasoned journalist now. He's been doing it for a while, but I think that because he's been doing it for so long, he's starting to question the effectiveness of social movements. And so his critical insights can be valuable. People like to hear what Greg has to say because sometimes it's like, you know what? I needed that critique. His cynicism sometimes dampens the enthusiasm of his colleagues, and it makes it really challenging to maintain a positive outlook where one is really needed. But this is what I wish people would understand about the cynic and the downer, is that we just have to listen to them. I think a reason a lot of people can get this low and just start to almost give up is because no one's listening, no one's paying attention, and they can see stuff that's right in front of them. A lot of people who are downers have been through things and pretty much nobody cares or nobody listens to them. And so then they just stay like that. They just say, whatever, the life sucks. It is what it is. And that's just how they are, because no one has ever really paid attention and helped them process and work through what it is that they're going through. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody's job. It's really not. But at the same time, we can't keep looking at people who we have brought low by ignoring them, who probably used to be helpful. Who goes into journalism and then gets jaded? Somebody who actually gave a damn and then saw the harsh realities of life and no one helped them figure out how to help. I'm just saying, I feel like there's a lot more we could be doing for each other, for the Gregs and the Cornels in life. Now let's talk about the con. And I think that Frank Lucas really fits this. He was known for elaborate drug trafficking operations. He operated with cunning and audacity and exploited trust to further his ambitions. And many of us really enjoyed Denzel's rendition, watching his rise and fall that illustrated the complex interplay between crime and the pursuit of power. And it really left a lasting impact on the cultural narrative around crime in America. And I feel like as much as Frank Lucas was bad, okay? Bad. Okay. Also, it just goes to show that there are people in every single group, good people, bad people, smart people, dumb people. And sometimes a smart person chooses to go bad. The things that they say Frank Lucas did, oh my gosh, it's really frustrating sometimes just to have to sit with it and to know that it would have been really easy for anybody to go any different direction. That Frank Lucas could have been an incredible doctor, an incredible lawyer, just like Denzel played all those different Black men. That's a beautiful way to look at Blackness in America. It's look at every man Denzel played. He played everybody, y'all, and he played them all real good. Anyway, it's great. You off topic. You all the way off topic. You're talking about Denzel. We talking about okay. This is Dante. He is a smooth talking entrepreneur. He is charismatic and he sometimes bends the truth a little bit to close deals. He can be very charming. He can be very persuasive, but his questionable business practices do create a sense of mistrust amongst his peers and his clients. And there are different people out there who choose to become cons of all kinds. People who choose to be a small time con where maybe they're just doing something on the side of the road or just making something up, doing little tiny scams. But there are people who do all kinds of big stuff. And there's really no limitation to who can and can't become a scammer. Just like you can become a YouTuber as long as you have YouTube on your phone, a phone that has a recording opportunity, like a camera and a mic. As long as you have those things and a decent Wi-Fi connection or somewhere you can upload videos, anybody can start a YouTube channel. In the same way, anybody can become a freaking criminal. Anybody can become a con. This dude Dante here, his choice to go do this thing wasn't because he's Black. It's just because he a snake. He a lame. He has his own reasons for it. It has nothing to do with his skin tone. Now, how do you say this man's name? How do you say this? Say it. Mobutu Sese Seko, which is exactly what I thought I was going to say. So that's actually great. So now let's look at Mobutu Sese Seko and Charles Taylor. These two people were dictator, president, just it was bad. It was bad. Sese Seko was a ruthless dictator. He ruled Zaire with an iron fist. He fostered an atmosphere of fear and oppression. His regime was characterized by corruption, nepotism, and brutal suppression of dissent, and it made him a symbol of tyranny and moral bankruptcy in African history. He was in office from 71 to 1997, man. He was preceded by himself as the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo. I mean, this is, woo! I'm telling you right now, the things that he did and the things that Charles Taylor, the president of Liberia, did are the closest that we would see to Adolf Hitler. And what you realize is what they all had in common, it's power. It's a power imbalance. It's somebody who got to go too far. Charles Taylor, the former president of Liberia, he was implicated in numerous atrocities during the Civil War, including human rights abuses and the use of child soldiers. His actions contributed to widespread suffering and chaos and made him a symbol of cruelty and moral decay. Black people are villainized at a really high rate, and yet it's actually kind of hard to find true black villains, especially in the modern era, which means we're out here trying to be our best, greatest selves, and y'all still trying us. Ain't that some shit? So I just want to remind you, there are a lot of amazing things that black people have done and are still doing. And unfortunately, the way that we talk about race, especially nowadays, especially for the past, 10 years, 10 years, we're really taking things to a level that I've never seen before. And I don't think y'all want what you think you're getting. Most people who are watching YouTube for pure entertainment value aren't going to click on a video about black people and race, and you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I encourage you to be real with me in the comments. Black, white, other, whoever you are. What do you think about this? Remember, if you're confused about where I'm getting the 8 types of people, you have to check out the 8 types of people origins video for a full breakdown of the 8 types of people in a vacuum. But I wanted to delve into these diverse representations, even though they were kind of categories that still create a little bit of a generalization. I get that. But I want to be able to foster a deeper understanding of the shared humanity that connects us all. And I want you to think as you listen back and be like, well, I know white nurses. I know white doctors. I know white community leaders. It's like, I know me too. We all do. We all know people that are similar to us or like us. But the issue, the confusion, the thing I just don't quite understand is, why is it so hard for some people to see black people other than the 2 or 3 types that are portrayed on television and media? Is that a thing where am I supposed to go out and show people more of who I am? But even still, people know that black people and black topics are often censored on YouTube. So it's not like black people can just go create YouTubes and share their lives and suddenly they're going to get the same treatment as every other person. The ad revenue, the dollars, that's not going to line up. Sorry. So it's like, again, I feel like as black people, we should just live our lives and focus on doing what we want to do. But I feel like as any other race out there, your job, your goal should be to recognize that regardless of what you might, especially if you're ethnic as well, but not white or not black, whatever you might experience could be extremely problematic, sure. But because of the history and how this country was built, to pretend that that's not a real thing is just bizarre, dog. It's so weird to be like, oh, shut up, get over it. Some of us have great grandparents who are in their late 90s, early hundreds that had family members who were active slaves. Bro, you got to chill out. You can't pretend, you can't wipe stuff away. And you have to be able to have a conversation within your community that says, we don't know black people and we've really never given them a chance to get to know them. So maybe we need to try. And those of you who do have black friends and family members and are, connecting, and you're invited to the cookout, as they say, as the youth say, because I don't say that, but I know the children talk about it. I hope that you are doing everything you can and you know that you one of the cool ones. I hope you're doing everything you can to make sure that people know that we good people, because we make sure that when we tell them that it's okay for you to get a plate at the cookout, that you good people. And I feel like a lot of us do a lot to make other people feel comfortable and other people feel safe. And I'm just getting over it, So I hope that you'll share what you feel about this. And as we move forward, let's try to engage with each other more compassionately, more thoughtfully. Let's recognize that every individual contributes to this tapestry that is our society. And as much as we might want to say this person is this type of person or this person is that type of person, this is just the 8 types of Black people in a vacuum. We're not talking about what happens when you put an angel in a tough situation. What happens when you put a devil in a situation where someone they actually give a damn about might be in trouble. We're not even talking about how people respond to their circumstances. We're just talking about the heart and soul of a person. I think if we can start to think about things from a wider perspective again, instead of kind of narrowing down to choose sides, eventually after everybody's chosen sides, everyone will stand alone. So let's try to build bridges. Let's try to connect with each other. Well, goodbye to all of you who are unsubscribing. And hello to the rest of you. I hope that you can consider this video just a little sliver of some of the things that I think about, but that you'll check out some of the other content I have and just have fun and enjoy yourself here, because that's really what I'm all about. But every so often I am going to ask us as a group to just think about stuff, you know? And I think this is something that's really, really important for us to think about moving forward. Okay, I love you. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Okay, bye.